Don't take your family. They're low class. Not on my level. She said it with a smile, sugar-laced poison. My sister, Vanessa. Draped in designer, wrapped in delusion. A penthouse Barbie, with a champagne sneer. The Christmas party was her domain. All-white decor, imported flowers, and a guest list curated like a trophy shelf. And she wanted me to leave my real family behind. The ones who raised me when our mother left. The ones who taught me to make rice stretch for days. The ones who had nothing, but gave me everything. My name is Elena James. And from wherever you're watching this, stay with me. Have you ever been told to be ashamed of the people who built your bones? I brought them anyway. All of them. My dad in his worn-out jacket. My stepmom in Payless flats. Even little Benny with his chipped tooth and stained sweatshirt. We walked into that marble ballroom like royalty. Heads turned. Vanessa's smile tightened like a corset. Wow, she said through gritted teeth, pulling me aside. This was supposed to be elegant. I didn't blink. They're elegant. You just forgot what grace looks like without a price tag. Dinner was served. Small talk buzzed like a mosquito swarm. Vanessa raised her glass. A toast, she said, to family. The ones who know how to dress. She stared directly at Dad's old flannel. Laughter rippled, cruel, soft, weaponized. I stood, tapped my glass. To my stepsister, I said, the one who thinks she's rich because her boyfriend pays for her handbags. The room froze. I smiled. And, by the way, I'll be cutting off the Amex. No more spa days, no more rent. Merry Christmas. Her face drained like melting ice. Every smile in that room vanished. Even the candles flickered like they didn't want to be part of it. Vanessa blinked like she'd been slapped. But I hadn't even raised my hand. Just my voice. And the truth did all the hitting. "W, what are you talking about?" she stammered. The whole room watched. Forks paused. Conversations died. Her champagne flute trembled in her hand. I walked around the table slowly. You've been living off me for 2 years, Vanessa. I paid for your Cartier bracelet, your Miami girls trip, even that dress you're standing in. You know, the one you said was custom? I pulled the receipt from my clutch and laid it on the table. Neiman Marcus. My name. $3,250. Paid in full. She turned to Chase, her so-called boyfriend. The one with too much hair gel and too little backbone. Baby, she's twisting things. But he looked at her with new eyes. Eyes that suddenly saw the unpaid credit card bill on his kitchen counter. Eyes that noticed her stories never quite added up. My family sat silent. Not embarrassed, but confused. My dad leaned over to me, whispered, "You didn't have to do this." I looked him in the eye. I did. She humiliated you in front of strangers. I won't let her pretend anymore. Vanessa laughed, brittle, high-pitched, desperate. She's just mad because I've always been the pretty one, the successful one. I smiled. Tell them what you do, Vanessa. I'll wait. She opened her mouth, closed it.
Because what could she say?
That she posted affiliate links on Instagram and called herself an entrepreneur? That she hadn't paid rent since March? I turned to the crowd. I own a startup with 45 employees. Built from scratch. Self-funded. And yes, I brought my low-class family tonight. Because they never pretended to be better than they are. Silence again. But this time, heavy. Honest. Vanessa's illusion cracked in front of everyone. And for the first time in her curated life, she had nothing to hide behind. No filters. No lies. No me footing the bill. The crown she built out of borrowed money and other people's pride was crumbling right on her perfect little head. She stormed off. Not to cry. Vanessa doesn't cry in public. She poses like she's about to cry, waits for the sympathy, and then flips it into a story about someone else being jealous. But this time, no one followed her. I gave her a few minutes, then walked into the guest bathroom, where she was hunched over the marble sink, fixing her lipstick like war paint. "You ruined my night," she hissed. "No," I said, closing the door behind me. "I ended your performance." She spun around. "You think this makes you powerful? humiliating me in front of my friends. I leaned against the door. You humiliated Dad. You humiliated everyone who loved you before your fake followers and free PR packages. I'm not here for revenge, Vanessa. I'm here for reality.
She scoffed.
You wouldn't have anything if it wasn't for me. I introduced you to that investor, remember? I put you in a room. I stepped closer. You put me in a room. But I built it. You wouldn't even know where to start without someone handing you the floor plan. Her hand trembled as she reapplied lip gloss she could no longer afford. This isn't you, she whispered. You used to be quiet. You used to let things go. I nodded slowly.
Yeah.
I did. But then I realized silence only serves the ones who never shut up. She sank down on the edge of the bathtub, for once not posing, just exhausted. Not from work, from wearing a costume for so long. You can't just cut me off, she said, almost like a plea. I don't have anything else right now. I looked down at her, the sister who once poured soda in my shoes before prom, who laughed when I got rejected from colleges, who mocked Mom for working in retail. You don't have anything else because you burned every bridge behind you and never learned how to swim. I opened the door to leave. But before I did, I looked back and said, if you want to start over, Vanessa, you'll have to do it without using my name as a ladder. The party staggered on like a wounded animal. Glasses clinked, but no one really laughed anymore. People avoided eye contact, afraid the truth might jump out and stick to them. I returned to my family's table. Dad was rubbing his hands together, nervous. He'd worn cologne for the first time in years. Stepmom had curled her hair and smiled all night, even while Vanessa mocked her thrift store necklace. And now they just looked tired. I didn't mean for it to be like this, I said quietly. Dad smiled. You stood up. That's more than most people do in this world. I looked around. Vanessa's friends avoided me now. No more air kisses. No more fake admiration. Just a room full of people who couldn't figure out if I was a villain or the only honest person there. The band started playing something soft and spineless. The caterers brought out dessert, gold-dusted meringue, served cold. Vanessa stayed hidden. Chase approached the table. Alone. He cleared his throat, his confidence now as wrinkled as his shirt sleeves. Hey, Elena.
I didn't know all that.
She told me she ran your company's social media, that she helped build your brand. I raised an eyebrow. She posted one graphic and spelled strategy wrong. He flushed.
Well,
I guess that's the last lie then. He pulled out a checkbook. Yes, a checkbook. And handed me a folded piece of paper. I know she owes you. I can't fix what she broke, but I can at least cover what's left. That's what real partners do. I unfolded the check. $14,000. Just a fraction of what Vanessa had burned in my name, but it wasn't about the money. It was the first time anyone associated with her had shown me respect. I handed it back. You want to do something meaningful? Let her clean up her own mess. And next time, ask the girl where her money comes from before you let her shame someone else's family. He nodded, walked away. Vanessa picked them for style. I picked mine for soul. And that's what really separated us. 3 days later, she posted a photo. Vanessa, in her bathrobe. No makeup. Caption. Just taking time to reconnect with what really matters. Family, gratitude, and authenticity. 2 hearts hashtag, healing hashtag, humbled hashtag, blessed. The comments flooded in. You're so strong, babe. Only real queens bounce back like this. We love a growth arc. I stared at the screen in disbelief. She was turning humiliation into a hashtag. My silence into her sympathy. She hadn't spoken to me since the party. No apology. No message. Just a carefully filtered rebrand, as if vulnerability was a prop she could borrow until the next invite-only gala.
I sent her a DM.
Simple.
Direct.
You don't get to hijack the truth. Not anymore. No reply. Just a story the next morning. Her standing on a balcony, holding a book upside down, captioned, "Growth is uncomfortable, but necessary." She was using my pain as her platform. Again. That afternoon, I got a call from a woman named Naomi, a podcast host who interviewed female founders. I saw the Christmas clip circulating, she said. It's raw.
Brave.
I'd love to have you on. My first instinct was to say no. But then I thought about every girl who'd ever been told to hide her roots, to shrink in the shadow of someone else's performance. So, I said yes. And when we recorded, I told it all. Not the version Vanessa liked to sell,
But the real one.
about growing up in a tiny apartment while my sister lived with our mom's wealthy second husband, about working 3 jobs in college while she got eyelash extensions with my tuition refund, about how I built my company at night while she borrowed my credit cards to look the part. The episode dropped that Friday. It went viral by Sunday. Not because I cried, but because I didn't. I told the truth without makeup or mercy. And the world listened. The next day, Vanessa called, her voice shaky. You had no right. I exhaled. You had no idea who you were talking to at that table, Vanessa. But now you do. By Monday, brands started dropping her. The vegan skincare company she repped removed her from their homepage. The boutique clothing line she tagged in every photo posted a cryptic statement. We stand with real stories, not borrowed ones. Vanessa's followers dipped. Her sponsored content dried up. And suddenly, her world, the curated, polished, airbrushed illusion, began to crack.
She texted me.
Speech balloon, please. You don't know what this is doing to me. Speech balloon, I never thought it would go this far. Speech balloon, you've made your point, Elena.
I didn't respond.
Because this wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about consequences. The next day, my stepmom called. She's here.
What? I asked.
At her house. In the driveway. Crying. I drove over. Vanessa was sitting on the hood of her Mercedes like it still meant something. Mascara smudged. Nails chipped. Not camera-ready, human. When she saw me, she stood up fast. I lost everything. No, I said. You lost access. She looked around, like the trees might defend her. I didn't mean for this to spiral. I liked being someone.
You were someone, I said.
But you kept trading her in for someone shinier. She swallowed hard. You don't know what it's like. To feel like you have to prove you belong somewhere. Anywhere. I stepped closer. I do know. I just never lied to get there. She exhaled, shaky. Are you going to let this keep going? I crossed my arms. I didn't create this storm, Vanessa. I just stopped holding up your umbrella. She leaned back against the car, small now. Almost quiet. I need help, she whispered. Not entitled. Not strategic. Just a girl with nothing left to fake. I looked at her. Really looked. She wasn't wearing armor anymore. And maybe that's where healing finally begins. But not yet. Not before she owned every piece of what she broke. A week passed. No posts. No filters. Just digital silence where Vanessa used to parade. Then one morning, a courier dropped off a pale blue envelope at my office. Handwritten. No stamps. Just my name. Inside was a letter. Pen on paper. Not typed. Not ghostwritten. Real. Elena, I don't deserve your time. But I need your understanding. I spent my whole life trying to outrun the girl I used to be. The one who watched mom pick me over you, who wore guilt like diamonds, who only felt safe when someone else was beneath her. You never were beneath me. You were ahead. And I hated you for it. I used your kindness. I built my image on the bones of your silence. And still you showed up. You brought our family into that room. And brought me face to face with the truth.
I'm sorry.
Not because I got caught, but because I finally saw myself through your eyes. If there's a path back from this, I'll walk it. But only if I build it myself. No signature. Just a folded photo tucked inside, me and her as kids, grinning in matching red sweaters, before money ever mattered. That evening, I read the letter aloud at dinner with Dad and Stepmom. They sat still, absorbing every word like it came with weight. I don't know what to do, I said, voice low. Stepmom nodded. You don't have to do anything. Not yet. Just let her walk her talk. And that's exactly what I did. The next day, Vanessa started volunteering at a local shelter. No cameras. No captions. Just work. Quiet.
Heavy. Honest.
A month later, I got a notification. She tagged me in a post. Black screen. White text. Sometimes the most expensive thing you lose is the version of yourself that wasn't real. Thank you, Elena, for making me face her.
I stared at it for a long time.
Not because I needed her thanks, but because I finally saw my sister, not her shadow. And this time, she wasn't posing. She was standing. Spring came slow that year, but when it did, it felt earned, like everything blooming had survived a storm. Vanessa showed up at my office unannounced. No makeup, no designer labels, just jeans, an oversized sweater, and a look I hadn't seen in years, humility without shame. I didn't come to ask for anything, she said. I just wanted to say it in person. I nodded. Say it then. She exhaled. I'm sorry I turned your love into a ladder. I'm sorry I used your silence as a stage. And I'm sorry for calling our family low class when they've shown more grace than I ever have. She didn't cry. She didn't expect forgiveness. She just stood there, waiting. I motioned to the chair across from me. She sat down. You've changed, I said. She gave a sad smile. Losing everything has a way of doing that. I tapped my pen against my notebook. Good. Keep losing the things that were never really yours to begin with. She nodded. I am. Every day. That afternoon, I took her to Dad's place. No announcement. No drama. Just showed up with her like she was finally home. He opened the door, saw her, and paused. She whispered, I know I hurt you. I don't expect anything. I just needed you to know I finally see you. He opened the door wider. She stepped in. No one cried. No speeches. Just the sound of healing starting slow and quiet. Weeks later, I watched her from across the street, hair pulled back, laughing with kids outside a community center. Not performing. Not pretending. Just present. And me? I stopped apologizing for outgrowing people who expected me to shrink. I stopped carrying the weight of her masks. I started living without waiting for a stage to prove I belonged. Because I never needed a platform. Just a spine. And when I found it, everything changed. The girl she mocked for having a low-class family turned out to be the one who never needed anyone's borrowed crown.
She found her own.
I arrived early, way earlier than I needed to. The venue still smelled of fresh flowers and last-minute stress. Staff rushed around placing centerpieces and checking linens, but I wasn't watching them. My eyes were on the stage, the place my little brother would stand in just a few hours, marrying the love of his life. I should have been buzzing with excitement, but something didn't sit right in my chest. Still, I brushed it off. Nerves, maybe. I was just emotional. I had helped with everything. From tasting the cake samples when he and his fiancée were busy with work, to redesigning their seating chart twice when last-minute guests RSVP'd. I stayed up late, sewing together ribbon bundles for the wedding favors when the vendor messed up the delivery. I paid for the calligraphy on their invitations, quietly, without a fuss, because that's what family does, right? As I straightened out one of the napkins on a table, I imagined what the day would be like. Laughs, dancing, maybe a few tears during the speeches. I wondered if he'd mention me. Not that I needed the spotlight, God, no, but just a small thank you. Something that said, hey, I saw you. I appreciate you. That would have been enough. I had even turned down a big work presentation that clashed with the rehearsal dinner. My boss was furious, but I told myself this is once in a lifetime. My brother needs me. And deep down, I wanted to feel like I belonged. Like this family I'd always carried on my back might finally turn around and see me standing there too. The decorations were perfect. The menu, custom planned with their favorite foods, looked mouth-watering. I watched the bride's family arrive first, greeting everyone with glowing smiles. Then came mine, our parents, some cousins, aunts. My brother didn't even glance around to find me. But again, I let it go. Big day. So much going on. He'd see me soon. I smoothed my dress and smiled at a guest passing by. Today would be beautiful, I told myself. Today, I'd finally feel part of something. I had no idea that by nightfall, I'd feel more invisible than ever. The ceremony was lovely. She looked stunning. He looked nervous but happy. Vows were exchanged. Rings slipped on, and the kiss earned a round of applause that echoed through the vineyard. I clapped, too, smiling, pretending everything felt as perfect as it looked. But something had started to gnaw at me. Something small at first, like a loose thread you can't quite place. After the ceremony, the photographer started directing the family photos. "Okay, we'll get the immediate family first," he said, waving everyone over. I stepped forward, but the photographer looked right through me. My mom ushered my brother, his bride, and their parents into position. Then came the groomsmen, bridesmaids, cousins. Even our second cousin, Sarah, who flew in from another state, was asked to join a group shot. Me. No one said my name. No one looked my way. I stood awkwardly to the side, waiting. Maybe they were saving a special one for siblings. That had to be it. But it never came. The photographer clicked away, then started packing up. My chest tightened. I walked over to my mother, trying to keep my voice light. "Hey, was there a photo with siblings?" She gave me a confused smile. "Oh, honey, I think they just ran out of time." "Don't worry." But they didn't run out of time. They took over 100 photos. Later, during the speeches, I held my breath when my brother took the mic. He thanked his new in-laws, his childhood best friend, even a co-worker who helped him with honeymoon plans. He mentioned growing up with unwavering support, and I leaned in, certain this was it. But then he looked over at our parents and smiled. "You too gave me everything. You taught me what real love looks like." That was it. No mention of me. Not a word. Not even a glance. My throat burned. I laughed softly into my champagne glass, pretending I wasn't holding my breath, pretending it didn't matter. But inside I felt it, that slow, quiet cracking, like I had somehow died in their memory and no one told me. I wasn't just forgotten. I was erased, like I had never mattered to begin with. And in that moment, surrounded by glittering lights and polite claps, I started to question if I'd been fooling myself all along. I waited until the dance floor had filled and the lights dimmed a little, casting soft golden shadows across the tables. I needed to know. I needed to understand why. Maybe it was an oversight. Maybe stress had made him forget. That's what I told myself as I made my way toward him, weaving through laughing guests and clinking glasses. He stood near the bar, sipping something dark, his new wife by his side. I waited for her to turn away, then stepped in quietly. "Hey," I said, forcing a smile. He turned, surprised. "Oh, hey." I hesitated. "Can I talk to you for a second?" He nodded and followed me a few steps away from the crowd. I could still hear the music humming behind us, but it felt distant, muted, like I was underwater. I started swallowing hard. I noticed I wasn't in the family photos, or mentioned in your speech. And I don't mean to make this about me really, but it hurt. I've been here through everything. I helped with the wedding, the planning, the bills. His expression didn't shift, just this unreadable, distant look. I kept going, hoping something would click in his head. "You know I had to turn down a huge meeting to be here this weekend. I've done everything I could to support you." He stared at me for a beat too long. Then he shrugged. "Honestly," he said, his voice flat, "this day isn't about people who never made us proud." The words hit like ice water down my back. I blinked, not sure I heard him right. "What?" I breathed. He didn't flinch. "You've always been the odd one out. You do your own thing, keep to yourself, and honestly, you've never really fit the mold. You moved out, barely come around, and when you do, you act like you're doing everyone a favor." I felt the ground tilt beneath me. My chest tightened. "Fit the mold." I repeated. "I've bailed you out of rent twice. I stayed up all night editing your resume when you got fired. I've given and never asked for anything back." He scoffed lightly. "Well, thanks, I guess. But today's not about you. It's about family." I stared at him, stunned. "And I'm not that." He didn't answer. My hands were trembling, but I nodded. That was all I could do. No tears. No more words. "Okay," I whispered. "Got it." I turned and walked back to my table by the exit, my heart pounding so loudly it drowned out the music. That was the moment something inside me snapped, not in anger, not even in sadness, just finality. He made it clear I didn't belong. So I decided, right then, that I wouldn't pretend anymore either. As I sat at my table near the exit, staring blankly at the champagne bubbles in my glass, the music faded into background noise. My brother's words still echoed in my head, people who never made us proud. I wanted to laugh, not because it was funny, but because it was so wildly untrue, it almost felt like a cruel joke. They didn't know the memories I carried, the ones I never asked credit for. They didn't know that when we were kids and he broke Dad's expensive watch, I told him it was me. I took the grounding, the yelling, the icy silence for a week because he was scared. He was just a kid, and I figured that's what big sisters do. They didn't know that during college, when he was failing his math class and terrified of losing his scholarship, I stayed up for nights helping him cram, rewriting notes, tutoring him even when I had my own finals. I skipped parties, gave up a spring break trip, all so he could pass. They didn't know that when he lost his job at 25 and moved back home with nothing, I quietly sent our parents money every month to cover the extra bills. I told them to pretend it was their idea, to protect his pride. And when he started that side hustle selling art prints, I was his first buyer. I made fake accounts just to boost his reviews. And maybe the one that stings the most, I passed on grad school in another city because Mom cried about losing the glue of the family. I stayed. I settled for a job I didn't love just to keep the peace, just to be close. I did it all without expectation. No medals, no applause, not even acknowledgement. I didn't need it, but being called a disappointment, being told I didn't make them proud, that broke something sacred. They had no idea how many times I'd put myself last, how many doors I quietly closed on my own future, thinking I was helping to build something that mattered, something we could all stand inside together. But the truth was, I was building a home that only ever had one locked door, and I was always on the other side of it. And now they'd shut it for good. I sat there, alone at the table by the exit, the room full of laughter, chatter, and the clinking of glasses. It felt as if the whole world was celebrating, and I was an outsider watching from behind a foggy window. My hands were cold. I could still hear the faint buzz of the music, but it didn't reach me. I was in a bubble of my own, a place where my brother's words replayed over and over, cutting deeper each time. This day isn't about people who never made us proud. It was as if the very foundation of everything I had believed about family had crumbled, and I had been left standing in the ruins, unsure of what to do next. I wanted to scream. I wanted to run. But what good would that do? I had already tried to fit in, to be the good sister, to do what was right. But none of it mattered. None of it had ever mattered. The silence around me felt suffocating, the hum of the event now distant. I couldn't even bring myself to look at the dance floor, where couples spun around in joy. Instead, I just stared at the untouched champagne in my glass, the bubbles rising, popping with a tiny fizz. I wanted to drop the glass to the floor, shatter it, and let the sound fill the space. But I didn't. And then, like a slow burn, something shifted inside me. The quiet sting of betrayal morphed into something else. Something stronger. A realization. A seed planted deep in the soil of my heart that had been waiting for this moment to bloom. I wasn't going to sit here quietly anymore. I wasn't going to let them forget me again. If they wanted to erase me, fine. But I would leave a mark so lasting they would never be able to get rid of it. I would make sure of that. My fingers tightened around the stem of the glass, and I stood up. The floor beneath my feet seemed to vibrate with new energy. I wasn't invisible. Not anymore. This wasn't just about what I had been robbed of. It was about the power I now held. The power to take control. And I knew exactly what to do. I left the table without looking back. My movements were deliberate, controlled. Everything was quiet, despite the chaos around me. The wedding was still in full swing. Guests were dancing, laughing, lost in the celebration. But I wasn't a part of it anymore. Not in any way that mattered. I stepped outside into the cool night air, the faint hum of the party muffled behind me. My phone was in my hand before I even realized it, my fingers moving with a purpose I couldn't quite explain. The catering company's number was already saved in my contacts. I had made sure of that earlier when I was helping organize everything. I stared at the screen, my thumb hovering over the call button for a moment, as if the decision had yet to fully settle inside me. But it had. I wasn't going to back down now. The ringing on the other end felt too loud, too sharp. It echoed in my ears like a ticking clock, counting down the final moments of the choice I had just made. It felt like 100 voices screaming at me to stop, telling me that I was overreacting, that there was no need to take things this far. But the voice inside me, the voice that had been silenced for years, was louder now. "Good evening," a voice answered. "How can I assist you?" I took a breath. "I need to cancel the final payment for the wedding." The woman on the other end paused. I'm sorry, could you clarify? You'd like to cancel?" I let the question hang in the air for a moment, my fingers tapping lightly on the side of the phone. Part of me wanted to hesitate, to think it through, but I couldn't. I was tired of thinking. Tired of being the good sister, the one who always helped, the one who bent over backward for people who wouldn't even show me the smallest amount of gratitude. "Yeah," I said, my voice steady despite the chaos building inside me. "I want to cancel the final payment. I don't want any of the food to be delivered." I could hear her typing on the other end. "Are you sure, ma'am? We've already prepared." "I'm sure," I interrupted softly. "Cancel it all." There was a long pause, and I could feel her confusion through the phone. But I didn't care. No more hesitation, no more explaining myself. I was done with trying to be the person everyone could rely on, only to be overlooked when it mattered. "I'll also need to change the contact info for any future correspondence," I added, my voice even. "Make sure the payment doesn't go through." Another silence. Then she simply replied, "Understood, ma'am. I'll take care of that right away." I hung up the phone before she could say anything else. The night air felt colder now, but there was a warmth spreading inside me, a sense of power, however small. I hadn't screamed. I hadn't fought. I'd simply acted. And in that quiet, simple decision, I had just taken the first step in making them realize what it felt like to be forgotten. The first few minutes were filled with confusion. Guests glanced at each other, wondering if the delay was just a temporary hiccup. The air was still thick with laughter, people sipping their drinks, chatting, but there was an underlying tension that hadn't been there before. "Isn't the first course supposed to be served by now?" someone asked, looking at the empty tables. The silver platters that had once gleamed with anticipation now sat still untouched. The clink of glasses seemed louder now, the conversations a little more strained. I sat in my quiet corner, just beyond the reach of the ballroom lights, watching it all unfold. I didn't have to say a word. No explanations. No dramatic confrontations. It was all happening without me needing to lift a finger. Then I saw him, the groom, my brother, standing at the far end of the room. He looked like he was about to burst. His jaw was clenched, his eyes scanning the crowd like he was looking for someone to blame. "Where's the food?" he muttered under his breath, walking hurriedly toward the catering manager. I could hear the panic in his voice, even from across the room. "Why is nothing coming out?" The manager, sweating under the pressure, scrambled to explain. "There's been a delay, sir. The delivery is—" "No," my brother cut him off, his voice rising slightly. "This is the first course. Why are we even waiting for it? It should have been here by now. What the hell is going on?" I didn't need to be close to hear the tension in his words. Guests were starting to notice now, their conversations halting. Some people fidgeted in their seats. Others exchanged awkward glances. It was impossible to ignore the growing awkwardness. Whispers began to float around the room. Maybe there's a problem with the kitchen? Shouldn't the wedding planner have confirmed everything was ready? The caterers were running around now, faces flushed with embarrassment. They checked their phones, muttered among themselves, but the food never came. Not even the appetizers. Then the family, sensing the unease, began to unravel in their own way. My parents were suddenly up pacing, looking for answers, offering explanations that were half-hearted at best. My mother shot a nervous look at my brother, who was growing visibly more anxious. The room was filling with a strange, uncomfortable tension. Every minute felt like an hour. And through it all, I just sat there watching. The satisfaction bubbling inside me wasn't loud or dramatic. It was quiet, calculated. For once, I didn't have to justify my actions. The reality of the situation spoke louder than anything I could have said. The groom, now visibly flustered, hurried back to the head table. scanning the crowd as if expecting someone to step forward and fix this disaster. But no one did. I glanced over at him once more, noticing how desperate he looked. His newlywed smile had faded, and all that remained was the truth. This day, the one he'd made all about appearances, was now falling apart in front of him. No one knew what was happening, not truly. But I knew, and for once, I didn't care to explain. The room was still in chaos. The food crisis had reached its peak, and whispers had turned into loud conversations. My brother was trying, failing, to put on a brave face, attempting to placate the guests, offering them drinks and excuses. But it was clear. The magic of his wedding day was unraveling at the seams. Guests were now staring at the empty tables, awkwardly trying to make the best of it. Some looked at the groom, some at the catering team, and then, as if drawn by an invisible force, their eyes slowly shifted to me. I was still sitting by the exit, watching it all with quiet detachment, the weight of the situation settling comfortably in the pit of my stomach. The world was now turning its attention on me, in a way I hadn't anticipated. At first, I had been a quiet presence, unnoticed in the corner. But as the night wore on, I became the subtle center of the storm. The truth, unspoken but undeniable, was written on their faces. My absence from the speeches, my exclusion from the photos. Those things had come back to haunt them. It wasn't long before my brother, his eyes frantic with frustration, made his way over to me. He stopped in front of my table, his posture tense, his gaze shifting from the empty tables to my calm face. He opened his mouth to speak, but his words faltered. He couldn't quite grasp what to say anymore. All his rehearsed lines about gratitude and family, about how today was supposed to be perfect, now felt hollow. I could see the realization in his eyes, and it stung him more than any harsh word I could have thrown at him. "You," he began, then paused, his voice cracking. "Why would you do this?" There was no anger in me anymore, just a quiet, steady calmness that had grown within me in the past few hours. I didn't need to yell, didn't need to explain. He'd made his choice a long time ago, and now he had to live with it. I looked at him, meeting his gaze without blinking, and shook my head slowly. "You don't get to ask that now," I said, my voice low but resolute. "Not after everything." The guilt started creeping into his eyes, but it didn't matter anymore. I wasn't the person who needed to be fixed. I wasn't the one who had let myself be forgotten. The weight of his regret settled over him, but it didn't belong to me. I stood up, gracefully, without a hint of bitterness. My eyes met those of the people still glancing at me, and for a brief moment, there was nothing left to prove. No words to say, no justifications to make. I had already said everything I needed to say without a single word. My actions had done all the talking. I took one last look at my brother, the man I had once loved with all my heart, the man who had meant the world to me. Now he was just another figure in a room full of people who couldn't see what was right in front of them. Without another glance, I turned and walked toward the exit. I didn't need anyone to follow. I didn't need their apologies or their guilt-ridden eyes. I had made my peace. The night wasn't mine anymore. But I knew one thing for sure. Their day had become mine, and they would never forget it,